Hey guys, sometimes I wonder what it would have been like if I listened to my parents and got a real job instead of working in entertainment, like being a lawyer. I mean, I am perfectly qualified.
My name's Olivia, and I'd like to show all of you on the internet why I would make an amazing lawyer.
As the only child of my house, I'm skilled at commanding the attention of a room and discussing important issues.
It has come to my attention that Mom wants to change our toilet paper from Charmin to generic. All those opposed to chafing say aye.
Aye.
I can remember hundreds of important details at the drop of a hat.
Hey Olivia, can you name all the members of NCT?
Sure, Connor. Mark, Johnny, Haechan, Jaeon, Taeyong. I'm comfortable using legal jargon in everyday situations. I object.
So today we're gonna see, just for funsies, if I could be a decent lawyer by playing Ace Attorney. I did mock trial in middle school, and the first time I ever got called for jury duty, I got picked for a month.
I got this. There's no way they're gonna pick me.
Olivia, Dellum.
So I think I'm pretty prepared. Let's get into it. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney was originally released in North America on October 11th, 2005 for the Nintendo DS. It was a DS port of the original Japan-only Game Boy game Gyukuten Saibon Yomigeru Gyakuten. Gyukaten Saibon Yomigeru Gyukaten, which translates to Turnabout Trial, which is why every chapter in the game is Turnabout something. Ace Attorney Trilogy is the version we're going to be playing for this video. Also, major spoiler warning for the first game in the series, where we're going to basically be going through the whole thing.
The first case introduces us to our main character, Phoenix Wright, his mentor, Mia Fey, who probably has way too much cleavage out for a court of law,
Objection!
and the defendant, Larry Butt. Larry has been accused of murdering his ex-girlfriend, Cindy Stone, who was hit in the head with a mini version of the Thinker in her apartment. Larry is already proving to be a super great defendant by begging us to say he's guilty so he can get the death penalty. Super helpful. Phoenix tells us Larry is his best friend from elementary school, and that the kids at his school used to say, when something smells, it's usually the butts. Love the confidence here. All right, our first witness is Mr. Butts himself. Let's see how this goes. Ah, yes, Cleopatra and Mark Antony, the quintessential healthy relationship. Well, this is going great so far. The next witness is Frank Sawit, who found Cindy's body at the apartment. The pink suit is kinda slay, not gonna lie.
Diva is a female version of a hustler.
The judge asked Phoenix to cross-examine the witness, and Phoenix asked, what's a cross-examination?
Who let this man pass the bar?
So now we get to the main trial gameplay, using the evidence in the court record to find contradictions in the witness testimony.
Objection!
Oh man, my first objection. How satisfying.
This kind of reminds me of the end of Legally Blonde, where she figures out Linda Cardinelli is lying because she shouldn't have washed her perm. That's not really what lawyers are supposed to do or how objections work, but it's definitely a lot more entertaining that way.
Payne's voice objecting back is crazy, lol. Also, why is the judge asking questions? He's not supposed to do that either. Sawit says he thought he found the body at 1 p.m. because the taped program on the TV said so. But that can't be true because
Objection!
there was a blackout at the apartment. All right, we've got Sawit sweating harder than me in a Ticketmaster war.
No.
He did not just throw a toupee at me.
We tell the court the sound Sawit heard was the alarm clock and prove it by sounding it for the court.
I guess we could say we clocked that tea.
Mia asks if we can think of a reason why the clock was slow.
I know. She was getting dicked down in Paris.
Now, confetti in the courtroom just seems extra. And thus, we've completed our first trial. But what will the next chapter bring? Oh my god, they killed Miss Titties.
This is for my people who just lost somebody. Your best friend, your baby.
All right, now it's time to look for evidence. Looks like the thinker clock from before is the murder weapon again. The light stand is broken, and there's a receipt from the department store with Maya written in blood on it. After collecting evidence, we meet Maya Fey, Mia's sister who found the body. Before we could call the police, a woman screams from across the street and calls them first. We meet Detective Gumshoe, who, IDK, has got something about him. He sees the bloody note and concludes that Maya is the killer and arrests her on the spot. Maya tells us her sister recommended a lawyer, Mr. Grossberg, just in case she's ever in trouble, and asks us to go visit him. Where you at? In the meantime, let's get some answers out of the witness who called the police, April May, who stands like a velociraptor with breast implants and talks in the third person. She has this drawer with a screwdriver hanging out of it that she's extremely protective of.
That's suspicious.
So, I'm starting to think something's up with her. Let's check in on Mr. Grossberg again. The lazy is finally back in his office, but now he's rejecting me? Well, I guess I'll have to just defend Maya myself. The game gives me the option to defend Maya or go home.
Obviously, even if I choose to go home, the game's gonna push me in the right direction, but imagine if saying go home was just an instant game over and she just got the electric chair.
Now that I'm officially her lawyer, let's go back to the hotel and see if we can get any more information. April May is out of the room, so let's see what's in that drawer. A wiretap? Well, this is definitely going to come up in the trial. For the trial, we're up against prosecutor Miles Edgeworth.
So I'm guessing the next prosecutor will be named Inches Goonsworth.
The first witness is Detective Gumshoe. He gives us an overview of what happened the night of the murder and what's in the autopsy report, as well as his reasoning for arresting Maya, which isn't just the receipt, but that the witness actually described her.
Well, if April May could see that, then she's got some good eyes, because my blind ass would be struggling.
Ma'am, can you describe the suspect for me?
Yeah, it's a person, with hair. Yeah, with hair.
Maya gives me some help by giving me a strategy. Just press the witness on everything.
Makes sense. I've gotten through most of my life by bullshitting.
So after many... we get Gumshoe to admit the only evidence we have against Maya is hearsay from the witness. Gumshoe then brings up the bloody receipt. But how could Mia write the name of the killer after being hit if the autopsy report said she died instantly? Edgeworth then lets us know that we have an outdated autopsy report and that Mia probably lived for a few minutes after she was hit, so that's a non-starter. Well, that's about all we're gonna get from Gumshoe, so now it's time for the next witness, April May. Let's ask her why she looked out of the window.
It's like I have ESPN or something. My breasts can always tell when it's gonna rain.
Well, I guess her ESPN is working on the crowd, too.
Now, how the hell did she know it was a clock if she was looking from a distance? So she's saying she heard it say the time. So either she was in the office or she's f***ing lying, because there's no way she heard it from across the street. But we also have a recording of Mia's last phone call with Maya, and she said the clockwork was removed from the statue. So busted, you busty liar. Oh boy, Edgeworth seems to have a comeback, but we're a step ahead. He doesn't know about the call recording. Now she's trying to weasel her way out of this by saying she's seen it before. But we know that isn't true because our friend Larry Butts made it, and now she's losing it.
Lies were holding up those boobs. Lies, I tell you.
Take that! And now we're gonna show the court that you were wiretapping the office. Now we call the hotel bellboy to the stand. He testifies that April May ordered an iced coffee to be delivered at 9 p.m., the exact time of the murder, which definitely seems strange. We catch him and Edgeworth also trying to hide the fact that April May checked into the hotel with someone else. And with that, we've kept Maya from a guilty verdict for one more day. Through some investigating, we discover the man at the hotel with April May was Red White, the president of Blue Corp, an information broker. And this dude is definitely interesting.
Whoa, Phoenix, did you just call this dude a, you know?
After questioning for a bit, Mr. White just socks Phoenix in the face.
Not gonna lie, he kinda deserved it for the fruitcake comment.
If you notice that your kid is gay, as a parent, instead of you trying to change them or try to make them straight, I think what you need to teach them is to learn how to fight.
Now it's time to finally get some info out of Grossberg, who's been very suspicious the whole time. Grossberg admits that he's been using Mr. White for information ever since the DL6 incident, a case where they used Mia and Maya's mother, Misty Faye, a spirit medium like Maya, to figure out who committed a murder. The police didn't want it to get out that they were using a medium, but Grossberg sold the information to Mr. White, and the police have been looking for who spilled ever since. Grossberg also tells us that Mia had been going after Mr. White for years since he ruined her mother's reputation, which gives us a motive for the murder. In Mia's office, we find she had discovered a series of cases where White drove certain public officials to, Kermit? We do the kind of stupid thing, IMO, and confront Mr. White with the information Mia gathered, and he has us arrested. So now we're defending ourselves in court, and Mr. White is the star witness. Mr. White makes the first mistake in his testimony by saying Mia ran to the left, when the floor plan and April May's testimony show Mia ran to the right. He saw Mia run to the left because he was in the room with her while April was watching from the window. Mr. White changes his testimony to say Mia ran left, was hit a first time, then right with the second blow killing her, which can't be true because the autopsy report shows Mia died from one blow to the head. Mr. White has to revise his testimony again. He says he heard a light stand fall. Pressing him on it, we prove he couldn't have known there was a light stand there unless he was at the scene of the crime, which makes him look fucking possessed. All of a sudden, Edgeworth says Mr. White wiretapped the phone instead of Miss May, and that's why he was in the office. But that doesn't make him sound so innocent to me. Now he's saying he wiretapped the office a week before the murder? When all seems lost, Mia appears through her spirit medium sister. And you could tell because all of a sudden Maya has her cleavage hanging out of her kimono.
Even in death, she's gotta show off the titties. I respect it.
She tells us to check the receipt, and boom, it shows the light stand was purchased a day before the murder. There's no way he could have seen it a week before. Let's get his ass. Edgeworth wants to have another day of the trial, but Mia gives me the silver bullet, a list of names. When we start listing the names, Mr. White begs us to stop, and Mia says she will leak it to the press if he doesn't admit to the murder. We got him. He confessed. Second trial is a success.
Our next client is Will Powers, star of The Steel Samurai, who's been accused of killing his co-star, Jack Hammer, which, respect to the dead, but that sounds like a porn star name.
The Steel Samurai is Maya's favorite show. I bet she'll be so starstruck when she meets him. Well, damn, okay. Anyway, Will says the cast of the show was at the studio for a rundown of some of the action sequences at 10 a.m. Then they had another rehearsal at 5 p.m. But when they got to the studio, they found Jack's body had been stabbed by the Steel Samurai's signature samurai spear. His alibi is that he was taking a nap in his dressing room while the murder took place, and he was late to the rehearsal. So, we go check out Global Studios for clues and are greeted by the security guard, Old Bag. The Ace Attorney team went crazy with the names. She has a thing for Jack Hammer and thinks Will is ugly. Fair. She tells us that Jack was a star until there was an accident on the set of the Dynamite Samurai series and has been reduced to playing villains ever since. And she's also certain that Will is guilty because he was the only person she saw go to the studio between 1 p.m. and 2:30 p.m. While we take a look around the facilities, we run into our favorite himbo, Detective Gumshoe. He gives us an autopsy report and tells us Old Bag gave him a security photo of the Steel Samurai walking to Studio 1. Next, we go to the employee area where we find leftover plates from the previous day's lunch, which looks to be T-bone steaks, which leads us to Will's dressing room. We go through his and find an ID card to go into Studio 1. So let's head to the actual scene of the crime. When we get to Studio 1, we meet Penny, the production assistant.
Solidarity, sister. I know your struggles.
Penny drops the bombshell that she sent someone who wasn't part of the production was outside of the studio. We go back to the security gate and ask Old Bag if she knows anything about the mysterious presence Penny mentioned, and she just gets pissed that we question her work and leaves. giving us a chance to print out the picture she said was damning evidence of Will walking into the studio between 1 and 2:30 p.m. And it is indeed a picture of the Steel Samurai limping over to Studio 1, but we can't see Will's face, so we really have no idea if he's in the costume or not. On the back, the photo says photo 2, which implies that there was another photo that day, but it's not on the computer anymore, so Old Bag must have deleted it. It's time for the trial. Our first witness is Himbo King Detective Gumshoe. He tells us the timeline of the murder using the studio map. Next, Edgeworth calls Old Bag to the stand, and she immediately starts hitting on him.
Hey, boy.
In her testimony, Old Bag says she saw Will, and that's the only person she saw between 1 p.m. and 2:30 p.m. But now it's time to hit her with the objection! Will isn't clearly in the picture. It could be anyone in the Steel Samurai costume. But when the judge says she has no proof that the picture is of Will, Old Bag hits us with a twist of her own. Apparently she does have proof. Will sprained his ankle during the rehearsal, and the man pictured is limping. Old Bag continues her testimony saying no one else walked between 1 and 2:30 p.m., so we hit her with another objection. I confront her with the fact that the picture of the Steel Samurai was the second picture taken the day of the murder, and that photo number 1 had been deleted from the computer. After pushing her, Old Bag suddenly remembers that she deletes non-suspicious photos at the end of the day. She says the other photo was of a fanboy around 10 years old who snuck in through the drain that leads to the employee area. With this new information, the judge has the court take a 5-minute recess to consider the new information, and we decide to throw someone else under the bus to buy us more time.
Ethical? Probably not.
So I go for the most suspicious person so far, Old Bag herself. Old Bag decides to drop one last piece of information to get herself out of trouble. She tells us Global Studios told her not to tell the court that the director, producer, and some of the studio executives were also on the studio lot that day.
Which, like, duh, how did no one think to ask that?
So, now it's time to head back to Global Studios to investigate some more before going back to court. First, we check out the employee area again. The poor production assistant Penny is here, and she's just done a banger DIY job of covering up the drain. Reminds me of my own DIY skills.
I think I need some help.
After saying hi to us, she runs to the security booth to cover for Old Bag while she's in jail. Production assistants really work harder than the U.S. Marines. We then immediately destroy Penny's thankless DIY work so we can lure the fanboy witness onto the lot and head into the dressing room where we meet this walking, talking restraining order. He introduces himself as the great Sal Manella. And yeah, this guy looks like an infection. Based on the way his dialogue is written, I could tell exactly the way this guy speaks.
Hey, do you do a lot of cosplay? Because that costume rocks.
I am disgusted with myself for that voice.
All right, while we have to be in the same room with this guy who I just know has insane BO, we might as well get some information out of him. He tells us he was at the run-through in the morning and then went to a meeting during lunchtime in the Studio 2 trailer with the producer and some studio execs, and that he missed the T-bone steak lunch and starts drooling again. After drooling, he says he was in the meeting till 4 p.m., which, if true, gives him an alibi. We go to the main gate and see the police let Old Bag go, and that's about it. And then we go back to the employee area and finally meet the fanboy who snuck onto set, Cody. He says he saw everything but won't tell us losers.
Ouch.
He runs away and coincidentally bumps an empty bottle of sleeping pills off of the table with the day-old T-bone steak plates.
Now, did this little boy drop these sleeping pills? Because I thought his name was Cody, not Cosby.
We go back to the main gate and Old Bag is chasing Cody, so now's our chance to get the key to the Studio 2 trailer. Inside the trailer, we meet the producer, D. Vasquez, who looks more like a Bene Gesserit than a movie producer. We ask her some questions and she immediately starts treating us like we work for her and asks us to go grab the script.
Okay, now I believe that she's a producer, but like, why is there only one copy of the script? When I was a PA, I would literally spend late nights copying and binding like hundreds of copies of the latest draft. I guess poor Penny is overworked.
You're a victim.
Honestly, yeah, including myself.
So we go back to Studio 1, find the script on the director's chair, and then go all the way back to the Studio 2 trailer to give it to her.
The game makes this a little tedious because you can't just go to Studio 1. No, you have to leave the trailer, then leave the outside of Studio 2, then leave Studio 2, then go to Studio 1, and then you have to do that all in reverse to get back to Studio 2. I feel like if we've already been somewhere, I should just be able to go there and not walk through all these damn steps. But I guess that would make too much damn sense.
So we give her the script and she's basically like, shut up, I'm reading. And Maya finally loses it. Like, bitch, we are not here for all this bullshit. We are Will's lawyers. And when she hears that, then she starts talking. She says that none of the people in the meeting went to Studio 1 because the studio mascot, Mr. Monkey's head fell off and blocked the path to the studio. Feeling defeated by Vasquez and the decapitated head of Mr. Monkey, we head back to the office. Knowing we're desperate, Mia and all of her cleavage appears through Maya. She tells us to go back and talk to Cody. So we go back to the studio and find Old Bag huffing and puffing worse than I do climbing a flight of stairs. She tells us Cody dropped one of his Steel Samurai trading cards while she was chasing him, and she's holding it hostage to lure him out.
She's lucky Cody just ran away, because if it were my Solgi photo card being held hostage, it would be the worst thing to happen at a security booth since The Godfather.
Look how they massacred my boy.
We trade Will's card key for Studio 1 with Old Bag for the Steel Samurai card and head over to question Cody. We find Cody again in Will's dressing room and offer him his trading card back, and he says he doesn't need it because he has a duplicate. After that, we find Penny in the Studio 2 trailer. We ask her about the Jack Hammer posters on the wall, and she says he was popular until it happened. Obviously, I ask her about it, and she's like, oops, I shouldn't have said anything. So then, just for shits and giggles, I ask her about the card Cody dropped, and apparently it's one she doesn't have. So we trade her for another card and see if Cody will go for that. Finally, this gets Cody to start talking. He shows us his Steel Samurai photo album. His enthusiasm reminds me of myself. Then we ask him what happened on the day of the incident. He tells us that he got to the studio around 2 p.m. and then got lost in the woods around the studio for about a half hour. Then he says he saw the Steel Samurai kill the bad guy using the samurai spear, and then he got scared and left. We decide that story isn't going to help Will, so we won't call him to the witness stand until Gumshoe shows up and tells us Cody will be in court tomorrow. We are back in court. Our first witness is Sal Manella. In his testimony, Sal tells us pretty much what he told us the day before. We ask Sal if he comes to work at 9 a.m. every day. He says no, in the entertainment industry, people start at different times. And Phoenix says, yeah, I know all about the freaks in your industry.
I don't know what hurts worse, being called freaks or the fact that he said industry in quotation marks.
He starts drooling about the stakes again, and holy shit, Penny made the stakes?
Bruh, she is way beyond needing a union. She needs a revolution.
We point out to Sal that we found 2 plates with T-bones outside of the trailer and ask who was eating there. Sal says he was embarrassed to admit that he did indeed eat a T-bone steak during one break in the meeting, which contradicts Sal's previous statement that no one left their seats during the meeting. When we ask for more detail, he says that the break was only 15 minutes, which wouldn't have been enough time for him to go to Studio 1 and kill Hammer. We then ask who he ate with, and Sal says D. Vasquez. Edgeworth objects our questioning, saying obviously no one in the trailer could have committed the murder. The judge asks me if I claim that someone in the trailer did commit the murder. We say that there was enough time for that to happen. Edgeworth then reminds us that the path from Studio 2 to Studio 1 was blocked from 2:15 p.m. to 4 p.m. because Mr. Monkey's head fell off.
Damn you, Mr. Monkey.
The next witness is Cody, and he's too short for the witness stand.
Relatable.
He also brought his camera to court. He says he doesn't go anywhere without it, so we'll file that away for later. Cody testifies that he saw the Steel Samurai fight the bad guy and he took him down. We ask him what kind of bad guy it was, and Cody says he was tall and skinny. We ask him what happened to the bad guy, and Cody said he looked dead.
Well, me, I guess.
Cody says he didn't have his camera, but earlier he said he carried it with him everywhere. Cody then admits that he did have his camera. The judge asks him if he used it, and he says he was too busy watching. We ask Cody if he turned away even once, and he stumbles but says no. We ask him what the Steel Samurai did to the bad guy to bring him to justice, but Cody continues to be vague, so let's press him harder. We reveal that Cody missed the killing blow and suggest to the judge that Cody got scared and looked away.
Objection!
That didn't work, so let's go with showing evidence. I'm gonna wing it and pick Cody's camera.
Take that!
He was too busy looking at the camera because he didn't know how to use it. Gotta remember this game was made like 15 years before iPad baby, so the kids weren't coming out of the womb tech literate. Man, poor Cody is starting to break. He says he couldn't get the lens to open in time, but that's all. We ask him if that's all that happened. He says yes, but again, let's press harder. We accuse him of taking a picture, and he admits to that too. He said he deleted the pictures. We asked him why, and he just said he didn't want to keep them. So now we present the photo book, where he keeps photos of the Steel Samurai defeating bad guys. The judge asks us why we think Cody didn't keep the pictures for his album, and we conclude that the Steel Samurai didn't actually win the fight, but Cody lied because it ruined his image of his hero. He couldn't handle the truth.
You can't handle the truth!
Phoenix says we've all made an error. Edgeworth asks what we mean, and we conclude that Jack Hammer was wearing the Steel Samurai costume when the incident happened. Cody then drops the bombshell that he did save one picture on his camera. The picture shows the Steel Samurai walking to Studio 2, which means that the true scene of the crime was not Studio 1. And Studio 2 is the location of the trailer, so there was no need for anyone in the trailer to go to Studio 1 during their break. Edgeworth objects and asks if we have any proof Hammer disguised himself. So now we reveal the empty bottle of sleeping pills we found and request that the court test it for fingerprints. The judge then suspends court for the day and tells us our homework is to figure out why Hammer would disguise himself. So the next day, we ask Will and Old Bag about Vasquez, Manila, and Hammer, and we kind of hear the same thing. Vasquez saved the studio and gets everything she wants. Hammer stopped being a star around 5 years ago, and Vasquez pushes Sal around, but he likes it. Because, of course he does. Next, we go to the employee area where Gumshoe is testing for traces of sleeping pills on Will's plate. The test comes back positive, which proves that Will was drugged. We also ask about the fingerprints, and Gumshoe lets us know that they matched Hammer's. After that, we find Penny in Will's dressing room and ask her about Hammer. She tells us about a rumor going around that Vasquez has some dirt on Hammer. Apparently, 5 years ago, they were filming something on Studio 2 when an accident killed someone on set, and it was Hammer's fault. Vasquez covered up the death, and that's how she's been able to control Hammer since. Penny also tells us that Old Bag would know more about it. So we go ask Old Bag, and she is pissed that we accused Hammer of drugging Will. So we prove to her that he really did it, and then she starts to spill. She tells us the rumors are true. There was a fatal accident on set, and that the paparazzi got a photo of it. Vasquez used her ties to the mafia to make it disappear. Then she gives us an actual photo of the incident, which shows Hammer accidentally pushed an actor onto the spikes next to the flowers. And that, my friends, is why safety matters on set. So we go back to Studio 2 and ask Vasquez about the picture. She tells us she'll talk to us more in the trailer. In the trailer, Vasquez says that the incident wasn't actually an accident, and she tells us to give her the photo and calls in a bunch of goons, old definition, to take it away from us. Luckily, Gumshoe arrives right on time and arrests Vasquez. Ugh, my hero. We're back in court for the final day of the trial, and our first witness is none other than Dee Vasquez. She doesn't give much in her testimony, just that she was in the meeting from noon to 4 and that they took a 15-minute break at 2:30 p.m. The only new information added is that she was fatigued and had Sal drive her to Studio 1 in the van parked outside of Studio 2. So we're gonna have to be crafty with this cross-examination. I'm doing my normal strategy of on every line of dialogue, but she's only giving me one-word answers and even gets pissed at Edgeworth for helping her out. Finally, I figured out a hole in her testimony. Dee said she had a T-bone steak with Sal, but there were no bones found on her plate at Studio 2. So that's when she was meeting with Jack Hammer. Vasquez fights back and asks me how she could have killed him if the samurai spear was too heavy for her, which, first of all, I'm the lawyer. I'm supposed to be asking you the questions. This bald-ass judge is not doing his job. And second, that's because you didn't need to hold the spear, ho, because it wasn't the murder weapon. Jack fell on the spiked fence. Well, rather, he was pushed. Vasquez then asked me how she could carry the body to Studio 1 in 15 minutes. Easy. The van she mentioned Sal drove her in earlier, he drove while she changed Jack out of the Steel Samurai costume into the magistrate costume. Dee just admits she lost?
I'm confused, but I do love when people tell me I'm right.
But then she says all I did was show that there was a possibility she did it. not proof.
By the way, this could have been good enough in an actual court. The burden of proof is on the prosecution, not the defense. All we have to do is cast doubt on the prosecution's case. But this is Ace Attorney, so we keep on going.
Except we can't think of a question. But out of nowhere, Edgeworth backs us up and asks Vasquez to testify regarding finding the body. Dee testifies that everyone was at Studio One besides Powers when they found the body, and Oldbag accused him when he showed up. After that, Dee asked to be left out of the proceedings, grabbed her script and notes, and went home. We press on her grabbing the script and notes and ask why she didn't bring them to Studio One. She says that she didn't think that they would rehearse on account of the murder, and for some reason Phoenix is like, well, that makes sense. Thankfully, Edgeworth objects and points out that she would have had to know about the murder before going to Studio One to know that there wouldn't be a rehearsal. Dee responds by changing her testimony. She now claims that she didn't think there would be a rehearsal because she heard Hammer was injured. I object to that statement, reminding her that Powers was injured. Dee must have been confused because she saw Jack limping while pretending to be Will. Vasquez responds by asking us what her motive was. We respond that she had no motive, and the death was an accident. Hammer wanted to kill her initially, and she killed him in self-defense. Oh, we finally got her. She's clearly a serious tobacco fiend, and she just broke her pipe. So now it's time for my not guilty verdict. Let's go, let's go. Edgeworth then comes up to talk to us and implies that he and Phoenix have some history.
Were they friends? Were they roommates?
They were roommates.
Only the next chapter will tell. So we start with two people on a boat that doesn't look nearly as fun as the Lonely Island described it.
I'm on a boat!
They talk about how it's been 15 years. One of them says they'll have their revenge, and then boom, gunshot. While saying Merry Christmas.
Worst Christmas ever.
And then, plot twist, Edgeworth is holding the gun.
Side note, gotta love that his attire to go canoeing was his regular fruity-ass scarf outfit with just like a little jacket.
So the next morning at Wright & Co. law office, which, by the way, is no one on vacation?
I guess the law never sleeps, but I thought Santa was in charge of dealing judgment on Christmas.
Maya asks if there are any good waterfalls around here.
Come on, Maya. Don't go chasing waterfalls. Stick to the rivers and the lakes you are used to. She says it's for spirit medium training. TLC didn't mention anything about that, so I guess you're good.
Then the TV comes on and tells us that a large, unidentified animal was sighted at Gourd Lake, and the locals are calling it Gordy, like Nessie.
You nicknamed my daughter after the Loch Ness Monster?
Then the news gives us something real. A body was found in the lake, and the suspect is none other than Edgeworth. So we head to Gourd Lake to see what's going on. We run into my himbo husband, Detective Gumshoe, and he tells us that the crime happened at about 12:15 a.m. and that there was a witness who reported the crime. We ask him if he thinks Edgeworth did it, and Gumshoe says he doesn't believe it, but the rest of the department does, and they're not taking the investigation very seriously. He asks us to help Edgeworth and represent him at the trial the next day. We also ask him about the witness, and Gumshoe tells us it's confidential. So with that, we head to the police station. And Edgeworth looks pissed that we're here. He assumes we're here to laugh at him.
Rude. Phoenix and Maya aren't laughing at you. I am, though.
Phoenix says we don't have enough free time to come to the police station just to laugh at him, and Edgeworth immediately clocks that we do. He really said, "Objection, you actually have no life." And he would be right. So we ask him what happened, and he's like, "Why should I tell you?" And sweet, sweet Maya tells him that we want to help him, and he's like, "LOL, you can't help me. You suck."
Phoenix and Maya are better people than me, because I would have been like,
Okay, well, have fun in the electric chair.
But because the story must go on, we ask why Edgeworth was out at the lake last night, and he tells us,
shamefully I might add,
that he was there to see Gordy. And that's it. That's all we could get out of him. Then we ask if we can represent him, and he laughs at us again and says we don't have enough experience. He said he's not desperate enough, even though every defense attorney he asked already told him no because they were afraid they would lose.
As if we didn't just beat his ass in the last case. Have a little faith, damn.
So we go back to Gourd Lake and tell Gumshoe that Edgeworth really doesn't want us to represent him. Then another cop tells him that he needs to go back to the precinct for an investigation briefing. Gumshoe tells us to come to the precinct after the briefing to get the autopsy report and to ask him any questions. He also gives us permission to look around the lake. So we head to Gourd Lake Beach and find some poppers. Not that kind. Then we head over to Gourd Lake Woods where we find a campsite and a camera with a microphone attached. We figure the camera goes off when there's a loud noise, so we try the poppers. This gets the camera to work and pisses off what looks like Napoleon Dynamite's cousin. I show her my attorney's badge and tell her we're here to investigate a murder, and she's excited.
I know a true crime podcast bitch when I see one.
She tells us her name is Lotta Hart and that she was at the lake to photograph meteor showers for a research project. Next, we head down to the police station and check in on my soulmate Gumshoe. Examining the place reveals a babes in uniform calendar and a demonic Labubu. Gumshoe tells us they haven't been able to ID the victim and gives us the autopsy report. Maya says she thinks she's seen the victim's face before. Back at Gourd Lake Woods, Lotta tells us her camera took 2 photos the night of the murder. The photo shows 2 men on a boat with one of them holding a pistol. She gives us the picture and then says she's going to talk to the police. We head back to the beach and who do we find but Santa? No, Larry Butts, who's now working the Samurai Dog stand to make money for his girlfriend, Keonce.
Wait a minute. Keonce?
Grizz's fiance's name is Fiance, like Beyonce with an F.
We tell Larry there's been a murder at the lake and that the suspect is Edgeworth. Larry reveals that he, Phoenix, and Edgeworth all went to grade school together and used to hang out, but Edgeworth was also a dweeb and was always studying to become a defense lawyer like his dad, which is definitely interesting since he's a prosecutor now, but still a dweeb. Then we ask him about Gordy and he gives us a newspaper article about the sighting. Back at the office, Maya looks at the autopsy report again and remembers where she knows the victim's face from. He was a lawyer that worked with Mia at Grossberg's office. So we head on over to Grossberg's to ask him some questions. He identifies the victim as Robert Hammond, who was a defense attorney in the DL6 incident. The one Mia and Maya's mother, Misty Faye, was the spirit medium the police asked for help. Grossberg tells us the DL6 incident was 15 years ago and that Hammond got the suspect Misty identified out of a guilty verdict. Maya asks him how this relates to Edgeworth, and he tells us his father was the victim. Grossberg also gives us a photo of Misty Faye and tells us to ask Edgeworth about it. At the detention center, we show Edgeworth the photo, and he tells us the reason he didn't want us to defend him was that he didn't want us to find out about his connection to the DL6 incident. He then tells us that the statute of limitations on the DL6 incident runs out in 3 days. We ask him if he knows what happened to the suspect of the case, and Edgeworth said he disappeared after the trial. Then we ask him if he did it. Edgeworth turns the question around on us. We tell him we don't think so, and he finally asks us to defend him in court and gives us a letter of request to give to Gumshoe. And then all of a sudden, there's an earthquake.
It hits me like an earthquake.
And Edgeworth is just on the ground freaking out.
Interesting, but I'm a lawyer, not a therapist, so we're just gonna leave him here. Get well soon.
Now it's time for the trial. Outside of the courtroom, Edgeworth tells us that Manfred von Karma will be the prosecutor, and he's never lost a case in his 40-year career.
Well, Edgeworth, it was nice knowing ya.
The first witness is the love of my life, Gumshoe. He shows us a map of the crime scene and describes what happened that night. And then von Karma just orders Gumshoe to testify about the arrest.
Watch your tone with my mans.
Oh! The judge tells von Karma that's his job, and he's just like, no, bitch, you'll talk when you give the guilty verdict. And the judge is like, okay, cool.
See, that's why you bald.
Gumshoe tells the court someone called into the station about a half hour after midnight. He saw Edgeworth when he arrived at the crime scene and arrested him when they found a body in the lake. Then von Karma is like, cross-exam, now.
Man, I hate being told what to do.
I don't wanna.
So we press Gumshoe about the phone call.
When all of a sudden, I hear this agitating, grating voice.
Why is his objection so scary? He sounds possessed.
We ask Gumshoe if there were any clues found on the body. He tells us they found a single bullet. Von Karma adds that since the bullet didn't strike any bone, it maintained its shape. Next, we ask Gumshoe why he had to arrest Edgeworth, and he says that Edgeworth was found with the murder weapon, a pistol. The fingerprints on the gun also matched Edgeworth's, and the ballistic markings on the bullet matched as well.
This doesn't look good.
Von Karma demands a 10-minute recess from the judge, so it's time to talk to Edgeworth about what the hell is going on.
What the hell?
Edgeworth promises that the gunshot came from somewhere else and guesses that maybe Hammond shot himself. Meanwhile, Maya is struggling to contact her sister. Back in the courtroom, von Karma calls the next witness, Lotta. She calls out his attitude, and then he does this weird finger wag that we'll be seeing a lot of throughout this trial. Lotta tells the court she heard 2 bangs from her car, and when she looked out the window, all she saw on the lake was a boat. Then, Von Karma drops the bomb that is the photo she took of the incident and says that because there was only 1 boat on the lake, that means only someone on that boat could have shot Hammond. The judge is about to go give a guilty verdict when we... Objection! And point out we haven't cross-examined the witness yet. And Von Karma gives us that stupid f***ing finger wag again. It says we can cross-examine the witness, but if the questions are useless, he'll hold us in contempt of court. He can't do that, but the judge seems to be his lapdog, so I guess he can. We asked Lotta why she was on the lake that night. She starts to tell us what she was there for, and Von Karma objects and sustains his own objection. The judge tries to show a spine for a whole 2 seconds before giving in.
I feel like Elle Woods at the trial before she figured out the perm bit. I mean, Lotta is kind of giving perm. Does she know the first cardinal rule of perm maintenance? Is she not a Cosmo girl? I'm so lost.
Von Karma tries to hold us in contempt of court after our first few attempts at questioning when Maya does a hold it of her own and asks Lotta if she clearly saw Edgeworth. Lotta claims she did, which was not in her original testimony, which should give us a chance to cross-examine her again. Von Karma tells the judge to still hold us in contempt of court, and the judge tells him no.
We're breaking free!
Von Karma says that Phoenix still needs to be arrested, and Maya says that since she made the outburst, she should be arrested instead, and lets herself be taken away.
겁이 나서 시작조차 안 해봤다면 그댄 투덜대지 마라 좀.
Lotta testifies that she saw Edgeworth on the boat, and we object and show the photograph again, and point out she couldn't have seen Edgeworth clearly because of the fog. Von Karma tries to object that he told her not to say that.
Which, insane that he just admitted that he coached the witness to withhold evidence.
And the judge is like, nah, tell how you saw Edgeworth in that fog. So Lotta all of a sudden adds that she had binoculars with her so she could see even though the mist was, quote, thick as grits.
Girl, you're thicker than a bowl of oatmeal.
So, with the info that Lotta went to a foggy spot, brought binoculars instead of a telescope, and the angle of the photo, I don't think she was there to study a meteor shower at all. I think she was there to see none other than Gordy, and I'm gonna prove it by reminding the court that Lotta's camera was set to automatically take photos when a loud noise was detected. Meteor showers aren't really known for making loud noises, and Lotta is just like, yeah, you got me, but that doesn't change anything.
Sweetie, what about your credibility? Now you sound like a liar.
You're such a f***ing liar, Camille.
Lotta revises her testimony to include that she was photographing Gordy, and we ask her why she felt the need to lie, and she says she was worried about competition. We double check if it's the only reason, and Lotta begins to answer when Von Karma objects. All right, back to Lotta's testimony. She tells us that when she heard the bang, she looked out at the lake and watched the boat. We object and point out that if she was there to look for Gordy, she would have been, well, looking for Gordy, not watching the boat. She admits to scanning the lake for Gordy and confesses that she just really wanted to be a witness in a murder trial. She defends herself by saying at least she got the picture, and the judge points out that the picture doesn't show who is shooting. Lotta starts to mention something else, and Von Karma basically says, objection, shut up. We get a flashback to Gumshoe mentioning that Lotta was going to enlarge the photo. We ask Lotta why the enlargement hasn't been presented to the court, and Von Karma says it doesn't exist. Lotta has finally had enough of Von Karma and says that he was the one who told her not to show the enlargement to the court. We ask her to show it to the court, and Von Karma objects, but the judge denies the objection. The enlargement shows the gun going off, but doesn't show the faces. Von Karma tries to get the judge to end the trial, so we gotta think quick and point out something wrong with the photo. So we point out that the shooter in the picture is using his left hand, but the prints on the gun matched Edgeworth's right hand, which means he couldn't have shot the gun. The judge then asks us to explain what happened if it wasn't Edgeworth, and our best guess is that the man shot himself, just like Edgeworth said. Von Karma points out that examination of the bullet showed that the gun was shot from a meter away, which means it's impossible that Hammond shot himself. The judge decides to suspend court to give us another day to investigate who else could have shot Hammond. First, we head to the detention center to visit Maya. She tells us she blurted out in court because she knew she had to do something, but because she hadn't been training, she wasn't able to channel Mia for help. She also tells us that Gumshoe let her know that since it was her first offense, the police are going to let her go after questioning, but we're gonna need bail money.
I have $2.
Over at Gourd Lake Woods, we run back into Gumshoe.
Say daddy's home.
We ask him who Von Karma's next witness will be, and he says he can't tell us. We ask him if he knows why Edgeworth is afraid of earthquakes, and he tells us that it's connected to the DL6 incident. Finally, he tells us that Edgeworth was so moved by Maya's actions in court that he will be posting bail.
Oh, that's so nice. He didn't have to do that.
So we go to the detention center to pick up Maya and head back to Gourd Lake to continue our investigation. We run into Lada, and she says she feels bad about the trial and wants to make it up to us. We ask her what she means, and she tells us that she has some information that Von Karma didn't want her to spill in court, but she'll only give it to us in exchange for information on Gordy. So we head to Gourd Lake Beach to start looking for clues, and an inflatable steel samurai is there to remind us of our previous traumas. And of course, it belongs to Larry Butts. We asked him when he got it, and he said he's had it for about a month, but the air compressor was broken yesterday, and that's why he didn't have it out. Well, I'm out of ideas on how to find Gordy, and I miss Gumshoe, so let's head to the police station to see if he can help. He says he'll loan us one of the department's secret weapons to find it, and our choices are a police dog named Missile, a fishing pole, and a metal detector. My first instinct is to go with the dog, so let's go with that. Back at Gourd Lake Beach, the dog immediately starts growling at Larry and proceeds to eat all of his samurai dogs. I think that's a dead end, so let's head to the woods. Nothing there, and there's nothing at the boat rental shop either.
Stupid dog!
Next, I try the fishing pole and get no results with that either, so finally we're trying the metal detector. After trying many a thing, and maybe some Googling, we head to the boat rental shop and the metal detector starts beeping. Maya checks the bushes and we find an air tank with flags wrapped around it. And when something smells, it's usually... So we asked Larry if the tank is his, and he starts sweating, making up excuses, and asks what he would even need an air tank for. I don't know, Mr. Butts. Maybe the giant inflatable samurai right behind you? Just a guess, though. He finally admits that he tried to use it while his normal air compressor wasn't working, but it didn't go well. How so? Larry is embarrassed to tell until Maya begs. He says the valve busted open and made a huge bang, sending his inflatable samurai into the lake. And then it took him 4 days using one of the lake boats to find it. Well, folks, I think we have our answer on Gordy. We head back to the woods to let Lada know that Gordy isn't real. Lada is understandably pretty depressed, but considering how people deal with conspiracy theories nowadays, this is a pretty sensible reaction. Now it's time for her end of the bargain. Lada tells us she overheard the cops say that the boat rental caretaker would be the witness for tomorrow's trial. She also tells us that her camera took a second photo the night of the murder, but it was just of the lake, so she didn't think it would be much use. But she gives us the photo anyway. We head into the caretaker's shack and find an old guy with a parrot who keeps calling us Meg and Keith. He asks us if we're gonna run the pasta shop when he's gone, and then proceeds to fall asleep. So I guess let's take a look around while he's out. Maya tries to talk to the parrot and it doesn't respond. The old man wakes up and tells us the parrot only responds to her name, Polly.
Clever.
He also says she could say a lot of things if you know the secret words. Interesting. We ask him to tell us more about the parrot, and he tells us that since his memory has gotten worse, he tells everything important to the parrot. Maya asks Polly for the code to the safe, and she tells us 1228, no questions asked. Finally, I show the guy my lawyer's badge to see if that triggers anything, and the jig is up. He realizes we aren't Keith and Meg. But he does tell us he'll help us with the case if we run the wet noodle afterwards.
What the hell? Sure.
We ask him what he saw the night of the murder. He tells us he heard a bang, walked outside to look, and then heard a second bang and someone fell into the water. Afterwards, he saw a guy walk by the shop muttering something to himself, but he forgot what he said. It seems like that's all we're gonna get out of this guy, so we decide to head out. But just before we do, Maya asks Polly if we've forgotten anything, and Polly says, don't forget the DL6 incident. So now we gotta figure out how Pasta Guy over here is connected to the DL6 incident, and maybe Daddy Gumshoe can help us out. At the station, we asked Gumshoe if we could see the file on the DL6 incident, and he tells us that Edgeworth forbade him from reading the file, so he won't let us read it unless we can convince him it's really important to the crime. I mean, I think the fact that Edgeworth is accused of killing the defense attorney in that case is proof enough, but don't just take my word for it. Take Polly's. Gumshoe is convinced by the parrot, so now let's check the records room. We find out the incident occurred on December 26th at 2 p.m. in the courthouse when an earthquake struck. When the earthquake happened, Edgeworth, his dad, and one other guy were trapped in an elevator for 5 hours.
This is my biggest fear as an Angelino besides...
There was a lack of oxygen in the elevator, and everyone in there passed out. When they were found, Edgeworth's dad was shot. The murder weapon was a pistol that was fired twice. The suspect, the other man in the elevator, a court clerk named Yanni Yogi. Yogi suffered brain damage from lack of oxygen and didn't remember anything. He then disappeared after he was declared innocent. I have an inkling that Pasta Man is probably Yogi. We are back in court, and Von Karma predicts this trial will take 3 minutes. Considering the clip of this portion of gameplay is 30 minutes long, I think he might have underestimated. Von Karma calls Pasta Guy to the witness stand, and he's sleeping with a little snot bubble coming out of his nose. Pasta Man tells the court he's the proprietor of the Wet Noodle restaurant, and after some prodding from Von Karma, remembers that he also rents boats at the lake, but he never gives us a name.
What's his name? What's his name? I got nothing on a name.
So let's object to that. Von Karma objects back and says that we're wasting his 3 minutes. But the judge, whose spine may have started to develop overnight, tells the witness to state his name. Pasta Man says he can't remember, which is super great for his credibility. And Von Karma explains that he can't remember anything before the last couple of years, but since the incident was 3 days ago, he can testify. Pasta Man testifies that he was in the boat rental shack when he heard a bang. When he looked out of the window, he saw a boat on the lake and heard another bang. After that, a man walked by the window. The judge tells us to begin the cross-examination when Von Karma objects and is like, well, there's nothing to ask him and my 3 minutes is also up, so say Edgeworth is guilty.
You know what? I am, however, gonna slam your motherfucking ass!
The judge asks me if I'm cool with that, and I'm obviously like, no, bitch. And Von Karma absolutely loses it. The judge is like, what's wrong? And Von Karma says 3 minutes has passed. We asked Pasta Man if he saw the face of the man who walked by the window, and he tells us that he saw the face of the defendant and heard him muttering, I can't believe he's dead. Well, that's no good. The judge is pretty much ready to say Edgeworth is guilty. So we object and say that on the previous day, we showed that Edgeworth couldn't have fired the gun with his left hand if there were only prints from the right hand. Von Karma says Edgeworth probably wiped them off. We object again, and Von Karma objects right back. The judge is in the middle of giving his verdict when all of a sudden... Larry Butts appears and tells the court that he just remembered today that he was at the crime scene and heard the gunshot.
Oh my god. Larry is either gonna save the day or get Edgeworth the death penalty too, Electric Boogaloo.
Larry begs the judge to testify. Von Karma obviously doesn't want it, and at first Phoenix thinks it might be a bad idea too. Maya's like, well, the verdict is gonna be guilty anyway, we might as well give this a shot. So we tell the judge that it's our duty to let him speak. After some arguing, the judge decides that we need to let Larry speak and withdraws his verdict. Let's go, judge, your spine is spining. And then he gives us a 5-minute recess. Outside of the courtroom, Maya asks Edgeworth why his prints were on the murder weapon. Edgeworth says that when Hammond fell into the lake, he was in a daze and picked it up without thinking. Smart moves, genius prosecutor. Then Edgeworth tells us that Larry might be our chance since Von Karma has never had a witness he didn't talk to first. Larry testifies that on the night of the murder, he was on a boat on the lake looking for something. He heard a single gunshot when he was returning the boat after he found it. He looked out onto the lake and he didn't see anything, so he went home. We asked Larry about only hearing one gunshot since the other witnesses testified that there were 2. He tells us he might have missed the other gunshot since he was listening to his radio.
What was he listening to that he could have possibly missed a gunshot?
Von Karma says Larry's testimony is a waste of time and tries to throw him out, but we ask the judge to let him continue, and the judge has Larry add the radio to his testimony. Larry says he was listening to an all requests radio show, so there's no way he missed a gunshot listening to that.
That's All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey. That was requested by Steve for Janet. He says, Janet, I love you so much. You are my soulmate. Please take me back, or at least just let me see the kids again.
Larry says he was listening to his radio booming loud and remembers what the DJ said at the time of the gunshot. Von Karma insinuates that we can't believe anything Larry tells us. We remind the court that Larry said he remembered what the DJ said, and the judge asks us what a DJ is.
Really? Mind you, by the time this game came out, the term had been in use for almost 100 years, so it's not like he doesn't know the young hip slang, he's just an idiot.
We explain to the idiot judge that the DJ only talks between songs, so Larry definitely could have heard the gunshot correctly. So we ask Larry what the DJ said, and of course, Von Karma objects to the question, saying it's irrelevant. The judge asks us if we can explain why it's important, and we're just like, well, you won't find out unless you ask, and somehow that works on the judge. Larry testifies that the DJ said it's almost Christmas when he heard the gunshot. And we point out that this contradicts the other testimonies. The DJ saying it's almost Christmas means it still wasn't midnight yet, but the other two witnesses that they heard the gunshot after midnight. Von Karma explains this as Larry just being mistaken, and that he looks suspicious, which sets Larry off. We tell the judge that Larry was not mistaken, and Von Karma tells us to show the evidence to prove it. So we present Lada's photo taken automatically at 11:50 p.m. on December 24th. The judge asks us if that means Lada was mistaken, and we conclude that there were two sets of gunshots 25 minutes apart. Von Karma asks us to prove that the loud noise at 11:50 p.m. was indeed a gunshot. So we present the gun. The earlier two witnesses said there were two gunshots, but examination of the gun showed that it fired 3 times. We argue that the first shot at 11:50 p.m. killed Hammond. Von Karma asked us to explain who the two men on the boat were, and we said it was Edgeworth and the murderer disguised as Hammond. The judge then asked us to give the name of the murderer, and we have to admit that we don't know. Because it was Pasta Man. The judge asked us to point on the map where the murder took place.
I don't know.
And I'm gonna guess it's somewhere outside the boat rental because that just makes the most sense given the context.
Well, that wasn't it.
Okay, let's try that again. Maybe it was inside the boat rental. Von Karma asks if we have any proof, and Phoenix reminds the court that Larry heard the gunshot when he was returning the boat while he had headphones on, so the gunshot needed to be nearby.
I know the people who made this game aren't American because you do not need to be that close to a gun to hear it through some flimsy-ass Walkman headphones.
The judge wants to bring Pasta Man back for questioning and asks Edgeworth to come to the stand for some questions in the meantime. He asks him why he was at the lake that night. Edgeworth tells the court that he received a letter from Hammond asking him to meet at the lake at midnight on Christmas Eve to discuss something important. The bailiff interrupts and says that Pasta Man disappeared and he isn't at the boat shop either. So the judge suspends the trial till the next day while the police look for Pasta Man. After the trial is suspended, Edgeworth comes up to us looking all emo and says something's been troubling him that he wants to get off his chest, but he can't make up his mind if he wants to tell us.
Edgeworth, if I wanted to look at bangs and self-pity, I would go to a My Chemical Romance concert. Just spit it out.
Edgeworth said he had a nightmare of a crime he committed. Bro, really? In the courthouse? Can you at least do this outside? I'm fighting for your fucking life here. So the game cuts to Maya asking Phoenix if he really thinks Edgeworth committed a crime, when Larry pops in to talk about how great he did in court today. Eventually, Phoenix, Larry, and Edgeworth's relationship comes up, and we learn that they all went to elementary school together before the DL6 incident, and that they're the reason why Phoenix became a defense attorney in the first place. Long story short, Edgeworth's lunch money got stolen. Everyone thought Phoenix did it, and Edgeworth and Larry were the only ones who defended him. Side note, love that they all have the exact same haircuts as kids. Well, that was a lot of melodrama for something that happened in the 3rd grade, so let's get back to the investigation. We head back to Gourd Lake and run into Gumshoe. He tells us he's looking for Pasta Man and heads off.
He's so brave.
Since Pasta Man isn't around, let's see if we could take a look around his shack. Outside of the shack, we run into Grossberg, who tells us if we find anything to come to his office and he may be able to help us out. Weird, but I'll take help where I can get it. When we step inside the shack, we're immediately greeted by our bird friend, Polly, who gives us the code to the safe. We find a letter that says, "Get your revenge on Edgeworth," and even gives instructions, but it isn't signed by anyone. I wonder who that could be from. Well, that's something, so let's check in with Grossberg. Damn it, Grossberg. Okay, maybe Edgeworth has an idea about who could have written this letter or who the old man is. Edgeworth thinks it could be Yogi?
Yeah, boo-boo. I think we're gonna have to kill this guy, boo-boo.
Well, let's see if that triggers Grossberg's appearance. God damn it. Well, turns out there was one more question I was supposed to ask Edgeworth. Just who is Yanni Yogi? Edgeworth tells us he was a bailiff at the time. He says he remembers them all arguing in the elevator before he passed out and then woke up in a hospital bed. In court, Yogi's mental condition was called into question and he was found innocent due to temporary insanity. Maya asks if this guy got off due to being insane, how come he wants revenge? And Edgeworth is finally ready to tell us what he's been brooding about. Edgeworth tells us he's been dreaming about what happened in the elevator for the last 15 years. So when they were in there, Yogi started freaking out that Edgeworth's dad was breathing all of the oxygen and just started attacking him. Which, like, buddy, I know you're scared, but exertion is just gonna make you lose oxygen faster. Edgeworth finds the bailiff's gun on the floor, picks it up, and tries to throw it to his dad, but it fires, killing Gregory Edgeworth. Maya asks him if it's just a dream, and Edgeworth is like, that's what I hoped, but maybe it isn't. So now it's finally time to ask Grossberg and see if he has any insight. So we tell Grossberg what Edgeworth told us, and he thinks it's probably true since Yogi has a grudge against him. Grossberg also tells us that Papa Edgeworth had beef with Von Karma and tried to expose his tactics before he died. We ask Grossberg about Misty Faye, the medium in the case, and he thinks that Papa Edgeworth's ghost must have lied to protect his son. Finally, we show Grossberg the letter we found. He says he recognizes the handwriting, but he's not sure where it's from, so he makes us guess.
Dog, I'm a lawyer, not a handwriting expert. I'm just gonna pick Von Karma because I hate that guy. And Grossberg's like, yeah, that makes sense.
So, back to the police station to see if we can find anything else useful about the DL6 incident. When we get to the police station, someone lets us know that Gumshoe won't be back in today. So we tell the guy we just need to go to the records room, and he tells us that's fine since Von Karma is in there too. Well, that's a little awkward. In the records room, we notice a drawer labeled Unsolved Cases has been left open, and the DL6 file is totally empty when Von Karma shows up. We asked Von Karma about the letter because it wouldn't be Ace Attorney without giving away or smoking gun to the bad guy. He says he told Yogi to burn the letter after he read it, admitting that he did write it. Then this creepy pulls out a taser and takes the letter from us.
I knew that was a bad idea.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you.
When we come to, the letter and all of the evidence from the DL6 incident are gone, except for the bullet that killed Papa Edgeworth, which hopefully will come in handy when we're back in court. Outside of the courtroom, we run into Gumshoe.
Ladies, I'm trying to do my work today.
And he caught Pasta Man just in time for the trial. He's so heroic and sexy. The first witness is Pasta Man. He testifies that he wasn't running away from court. He was just buying food for his parrot.
Yeah, and I'm LeBron James.
We keep trying to find ways to get Pasta Man to admit that he remembers he's Yanni Yogi, but Von Karma keeps getting in the way. The judge asks us if Pasta Man's memory matters to the case, and we say it does because he's lying that he has nothing to do with the murder other than being a witness. The judge asks us if we know his name, and we tell the court it's Yanni Yogi. Von Karma objects, saying we have no proof. So we ask the judge to take his fingerprints and compare them to the ones in the DL6 file. And of course, conveniently, he has no fingerprints.
You what?
Pasta Man says he burned them off working at a chemical plant.
Sure. And I'm Yao Ming.
Von Karma starts teasing us about how we can't prove anything and jokes that we should cross-examine the parrot for some comic relief. But actually, that's not a bad idea. So we bring Polly to the witness stand and have Maya ask Polly if we've forgotten anything, just like we did when she first mentioned the DL6 incident. And Polly just says, hello.
I swear to God, Polly, if you do not cooperate, I will fry you and toss you in buffalo sauce.
Next, we try having Maya ask Polly her name. The judge asks us what this question has to do with the case. So we present the file on the DL6 incident. The suspect data shows that after Yogi was arrested, his fiancée, Polly, offed herself. Von Karma objects to this and says it's just a coincidence. So let's try the last option, asking Polly about the safe number. Polly answers 1228, which is the day that the DL6 incident took place, December 28th. Von Karma says that this is just another coincidence, but the judge disagrees and says that 2 coincidences look like a pattern and brings back Postaman to testify. The judge asks Postaman his name, and before Von Karma can object that he doesn't remember, Yanni Yogi says he's tired of pretending and admits who he is. And when the judge asks him, he admits to the crime too. The judge asks Yogi why he would want revenge on Edgeworth, and he's basically like, ask Edgeworth.
So we got the not guilty verdict, but I have a feeling this isn't over because the gameplay clip is 20 minutes longer.
And because Edgeworth is a dweeb, he objects saying he may be innocent of killing Hammond, but he's guilty of something else. So we object to that stupid-ass objection, but Von Karma objects to our objection to that stupid-ass objection. And of course, the judge says we have to hear Edgeworth out. So Edgeworth poses all emo-ly and tells the court about his nightmare that he was responsible for the DL6 incident. The judge doesn't know what to do, and Von Karma's like, obviously we should have a trial. So the judge takes a 5-minute recess to decide what to do. Outside of the courtroom, we tell Edgeworth that we're gonna prove he's innocent because Phoenix can't just take the legal fees and go.
Personally, I would be mad as hell at Edgelord Worth for wasting my damn time, but here we are.
So the trial starts and Edgeworth takes the stand. He testifies what he told us earlier about throwing the gun and it firing, yada, yada, yada. We object to Edgeworth's statement that there was 1 gunshot. As the police report says, the gun fired twice. Edgeworth only heard the first accidental shot before he passed out, but someone had to shoot the second shot. Von Karma objects that the second shot didn't necessarily have to happen during the incident. So the judge asks us if we have any proof that the second shot happened after Edgeworth's accidental shot. And we say we do. We show the court the photo of the crime scene. There's 1 bullet hole in the elevator window, and obviously there's one in Papa Edgeworth. Hence, 2 shots. But of course, Von Karma objects, saying that a second bullet was never found on the crime scene.
Obviously, the bullet did a little twirl after hitting the window and then flew into Gregory Edgeworth. The bullet could have been lost in the elevator shaft. This is such a silly thing to get hung up on.
But the judge is ready to give Edgeworth the guilty verdict because Ace Attorney logic. The judge asks if we have any objections, and we object even though we don't know what to say, when suddenly a flash and a pair of titties. It's Mia Fey and all of her busty glory fighting to tell us that the second bullet must exist and someone took it. So we say the murderer took the second bullet. And the judge asks us why the murderer would want the bullet.
To get to the other side?
So we do this back and forth about why the suspect would take the bullet when Mia appears to us again and says we're thinking too normal and that we should think crazy. Why would the murderer have to take the bullet with him? We very confidently guess that maybe the bullet hit the murderer. And the judge just kind of riffs with us and is like, that would mean the murderer came from outside the elevator. Von Karma objects that no one else was injured on the day of the murder, but Maya reminds us that after the DL6 incident, Von Karma took the only vacation he ever took in his entire career. The judge asks us to name the suspect, and so we do. Von Karma is like, you can't prove that I was shot. And I'm like, yes, I can. So we pull out the metal detector Gumshoe gave us earlier. Von Karma is sweating like a whore in church and is like, I don't wanna. And the judge is like, well, that sounds like your bitch ass is guilty. So we take the metal detector to Von Karma and we find the bullet in his right shoulder. But this dirty, lying ass motherfucker says it's a different bullet from something else.
Sure, and I'm Dennis Rodman?
But we have one more trick up our sleeve. The bullet found in Gregory Edgeworth's heart. If this matches the one in Von Karma's shoulder, then we've got him. Von Karma starts crashing out, and Edgeworth's like, wait, that scream sounds awfully familiar. Which sends Von Karma into maximum overdrive, like banging his head on the wall and shit. And that's how we get Edgeworth's second not guilty verdict. And Von Karma gets his karma.
Ha! Suck it! Suck it! Suck it! So there you have it, folks. After a lot of hard work and maybe a few walkthroughs, we've determined that I have what it takes to be an ace attorney. But I still don't want to go to law school. Sorry, parents. But if there's ever a new version of Suits and you need another biracial girl with a blowout, now I know what you're thinking. Olivia, there's a Chapter 5 in this game. Well, it's not in the original Game Boy release, and this video is already long as hell. I hope you enjoyed this journey through my legal education. If you did, please give it a like and consider subscribing. You can also check out my card link below for all of my social medias. And I stream on most Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays here on YouTube, on Twitch, and on TikTok. So follow me on the platform of your choice to keep up with that. And I will see you next time.
Se te olvida y hasta puedo hacerte mal si me decido, pues tu amor